So I spent my career always in the forefront of technology, always working for consulting companies and big, kind of companies you would know about, Rolls-Royce, Lego, Unilever, helping them with whatever kind of the latest challenge was. So about 6 years ago, I got really deep into AI. And the last kind of 3 years, that's all I do. It's all I kind of talk about. It's all I work with. And part of what I want to do is just, there's so many conceptions or misconceptions about what AI is. So I call this course, this workshop, AI for the Curious, which is, I think, the apt name for it. It's not like a beginner's course, although I'll try to do this as beginners as possible. But you're all curious enough to come out on a Tuesday night, so I'm going to try to treat it that way. I've got like 3 slides, so not a lot of, I don't want to actually bore you with slides. I want to show you things going on. I will try to keep this simple. If you have questions, just shout. I want to use real examples, so I'm going to ask you a lot of questions about kind of things you want to see or do. I'll try to explain just the basics of how, we use it kind of on a personal level. I'll give you some real examples because I use it every day personally and then every day for work. So, how many of you kind of in touch with what's going on in AI? Do you feel like you're seeing lots of stuff out there? Do you feel like you know what's happening? Alex, you feel like a bit?
I feel like I know a little bit about it, but there must be tons more, but I don't know. That's
yeah. And we hear about it all the time, but there's actually a lot of times and things you're probably already interacting with AI pretty regularly, whether you know it or not. And there's a few examples here. A lot of us use voice assistants, so we just had the music playing in the background. That was, I won't say the Alexa word, but that was the Amazon voice assistant. You have an Apple product, you have that first word, which I'm also not going to say to activate. We're seeing things like driverless cars haven't quite made it to the UK yet, but are certainly in certain cities in the US. Even apps that teach you language are very AI enabled. If you go to Sainsbury's checkout, there's some AI that's doing some of the self-checkout. I don't know if you've seen the new fruit scanners, so you don't have to tell it what fruit or veg you're putting on. So that's using AI vision to look at what you're putting in there, to then be able to then weigh it, which is old technology. So that's a few examples. But I thought I'd start with it by asking the AI to explain AI to everyone. So I'm going to switch over to ChatGPT. Oh, it's so friendly. Good to see you, Brian. So I'm going to ask it to explain. So I'm going to have to explain what modern AI is. And this is using ChatGPT, and I'll explain kind of what these are and the different models.
Can I just ask, the loudspeaker, could you have said that to it? Could you?
Yes.
Yes. I will show you different ways you can interact with AI. But I just wanted to start with the basics. And here is a concise and structured explanation of modern AI for expert or executive audiences. I'm not going to read this, but it's given us some core categories: generative AI, and it's still going, reinforcement learning. This is definitely an expert response. And the reason for that is, behind the scenes, I always ask ChatGPT to give me concise and expert responses written in British English for executive teams. Still going. It talks about very techy things. This isn't a very good explanation for a AI for the Curious course. So instead, I'm going to ask ELI5, or explain like I'm 5. And I'm showing you ELI5 because that is a kind of a hip modern way. Came from a website called Reddit, where there was a subreddit called ELI5, and people could go ask experts the question. So this is an example where if I say ELI5, it will know, sure, here's an explanation like I'm 5 version of modern AI. And it gives me some nice emojis now. What is modern AI? So imagine a super smart robot brain that learns by looking at lots of examples. So that first thing is really important about how AI has learned. It has looked at pretty much the entire web, plus academic papers, plus a lot of other content that's out there, books, news stories. And from that huge amount of information is able to notice patterns. And technically behind the scenes, all it's doing is predicting the next word. It's a bit like autocorrect, but with a lot more information behind it. Because we all know how autocorrect is always ducking wrong. Because it doesn't understand the context of who you are, and that the phrase ducking wrong doesn't make a lot of sense. We know what that word would be. So what can it do? So like guessing what word comes next, or if it will rain tomorrow. So it's taking patterns of words and putting them together just in a really, really good way. And this all came about 3 years ago when ChatGPT was released in November 2022. So that was probably the first time you heard potentially that AI is this, thing. There's a way to chat and get good answers back and forth. Before that, there were other versions that didn't have that great predictive nature. So what can you do? You can create stuff. We'll show you some of the things we can create. But writing stories, drawing pictures. In our nerds class on Thursday, we'll probably make some music with it. Design things. You can write software applications. And talk to people like we're talking to it right now. How does it work? Lots of data, very powerful computers that use quite a lot of energy. And then there's algorithms and maths behind the scenes. So it's really just a mathematical formula. Very clever one, but that's all it is literally zeros and ones to predict what the next word is. So there's some problems. You've heard a lot probably about it making things up because it doesn't actually know anything. In other words, if I ask you the question, when did the War of 1812 start? What's your response?
1812. Probably not 1812.
Let's try it. But as a human, you have kind of learned that the next most likely set of words after when did the War of 1812 start is 1812. You don't know how you know that. And if you did know that it started on June 18th, 1812, you wouldn't necessarily remember the textbook that you read it in when you were 16, unless you probably studied it, and you might actually question which War of 1812 are we talking about? Is it Napoleonic or the Great Britain versus the US? But it's predicting that next set of words. So I'm going to ask it a totally different question, and it gives me what may or may not be a factual response. We don't know, but it has learned that information from somewhere out there, and it's predicting that to be the case. Now, in this case, it did start on the 18th of June, 1812, but it can't give me a source. It can't say, according to this document, this author, this article. So that's one of the things when we look at, sometimes it makes things up. It's predicting the next word. Now, in very common facts, it generally is extremely accurate. Chances are more accurate than like an encyclopedia.
Can you ask it, where did you get that information from?
Let's try it. Now, there's ways you can force it to give you sources, and I'll show you some of those later. It's already doing it. So it's recognized that I'm looking for a source or series of sources. So in the last year, the AI's gained the ability to provide information from real-time information. So these algorithms, this maths, that big training set, they have to spend 6 to 9 months training these models, which means it definitely doesn't know anything from yesterday, let alone probably 6 months ago. So now it detects that it wants, it should go find a source and validate this. In this case, it goes to Wikipedia. so we can question whether Wikipedia is actually accurate, because that's, again, a curated data source, although I think we've seen that compared to professional encyclopedias, Wikipedia is more accurate than encyclopedias. But it's giving me that. It's also giving me a Times article that references the American War of Independence, and it has some other things. I can follow that link. Britannica, so the actual encyclopedia confirmed it. Additional sources initiating the war. So I now have some sources. I could validate that that's probably accurate.
How does it choose which sources to go to? What's that do?
We could do a whole talk on veracity of sources. It not particularly well. I mean, it knows that Wikipedia is probably a good source for something like that. It did an internet search, so things that came up top in the internet search, so that you're still at the mercy of whatever.
Does it use a search engine like Google?
Yeah, it uses one of the other ones, but yeah. But it's still using whatever gets ranked higher. It's not telling us that, the Daily Mail is probably not necessarily a reliable source. So we've got to explain kind of the very basics of what is AI. But I think even if you don't use it, and I want to just going to talk about, we touched upon the areas where AI is probably already touching your lives in various ways. So, we talked about the Sainsbury's, shops. That also includes, there's a lot of AI behind the scenes in recommendations. So if you're shopping online, you'll be getting recommendations that use AI. We're seeing a lot in medical fields. So you may have seen that things like X-ray analysis or MRI imaging and predicting of things like cancer, they are generally becoming more accurate, if not already more accurate than humans. There'll be a lot of work around the NHS and I've been doing some work with the NHS around helping patients find information. It's really difficult to find out what resources are available to you. And being able to surface that is one way that the NHS is going to start to use AI to say, tell me what your problems are. And now have this big repository of information, say, actually, okay, you live in Bath, here are some potential resources for you to go to. So that's coming just from a kind of a personal interaction layer. Today, I was writing on the phone. So for one of my clients, we were writing a voice agent that looks at insurance policies. To do that first kind of bit of information of explain what your problem is and let's get this going faster rather than having to fill out a form. So voice agents that were extremely tiresome, like none of us like having to press 1, press 2, are going to be natural language interaction. Schools, and Chris Quirk was just here. We're seeing it used in schools to write lesson plans, sometimes create slides, sometimes do grading of papers. It's a great resource to be able to save some of that time. Tomorrow night's class is all about the things we do at work. So I'll try to stay away from kind of the emails and meeting transcription and things but there's a lot of ways that people at work are using it, but then as kind of just everyday people, we're probably receiving things that people are doing at work back in our own lives. So customer service agents are likely writing or drafting or proofreading their emails and sending them back to you. You might, your friends and family might be sending a Christmas card this year that have a family newsletter written by AI. Depends on if you're on my Christmas list or not. What we see on social media, particularly sites like LinkedIn, which is, I would guess, about 50% of all posts on LinkedIn are AI generated. Humans give it the idea, but then say post it. A lot of things we see on Twitter and X are auto-generated now. So social media in particular is really easy to write a lot of content really quickly. And then, on the road, it's all around us. So the point of this is I just want to kind of give you a feeling that, even if you're not using it on a day-to-day basis, it's being used on you, essentially. All right, so let's do some real examples. So who's heard of ChatGPT before I started talking about it? All right, how about Gemini?
That comes up a lot.
So
On Google.
Gemini is a Google product. How about Claude? So Claude, you'll start to see a trend here. So ChatGPT is half owned by Microsoft. Gemini is the Google product. Claude is half owned by Amazon. It's run by a company called Anthropic. And Grok, heard of Grok? That is Elon Musk's AI. And it's unfortunate, but the model that came out on Thursday of last week, Grok 4, is now the best AI model in the world, for now. It shows if you spend $1 billion a month on AI compute costs, you can get a very good model. These are four of the biggest. There are about 30 to 40 sort of top tier commercial models out there. I don't expect you to use all these. The two that would be most likely to be used are Gemini and ChatGPT, because most of us have some sort of Google account in our lives. So parts of Gemini come free. So I'll show you how you can do that. And then ChatGPT is generally the most well-rounded and widely used.
You said Grok 4 is the best one.
Yeah.
What defines best?
There are benchmarks. So there are there are two key benchmarks. One is a test that looks at sort of upper level university physics and maths and engineering questions. So can it reason through very difficult questions? And the other is another test that's more general. Can you answer, difficult logic questions? It's come out on top, significantly on top on the university exam type questions. I've been using it since Friday when it came out, and it's the best for right now. It solves the very difficult work problems I give it. So I won't go that deep, but I do want to show you kind of these. So I'm going to switch to, I'll make this bigger again. I'm going to show you 4 different models at the same time. And let's give it, I'll open it up. What sort of question would you like to see answered by 4 different models? What's on your mind?
Is planning permission going to be given for Lidl?
Let me actually, that's a great question. I would have to access the web and find sources, but actually explain the logic applied by Baines when deciding on planning mission for a new supermarket. All right, so this is now going to have, and you'll start to see, and it's going very fast and it's not organized. But you can see that one thing, Claude 3.7, so 3.7 is the specific model within that Anthropic one, has already given me an answer. If I go back to the top, one of the ChatGPT models, and I use 04 Mini, which is one of the models, but you don't have to worry about that, gave a fast answer. Grok 4. So, but I'll explain the logic provided. So let's just look at this. Overview of Baines' role in legal framework. They're responsible for determining planning in the area, the key guiding documents that outline it, so specific documents. Presumption in favor. There's a general presumption in favor of sustainable development. Decisions, how the decisions are made, core logic, sequential tasks, rationale, example, broader. It's written me a 3-page paper on it.
Can you go further, and could you ask it if you are looking to get a planning application through, can you give it certain information to Baines and see whether the planning department feels that this would go through or not go through?
You absolutely could. You could also do the inverse of it and take another planning application that you're objecting to and say, here are some of my thoughts about it. Write me a well-sourced and thought-out objection to it. It works absolutely both ways. And if you search the planning application for the pub that just got converted to flats on the London Road, you will find a very well-written 3,000-word objection under my name, under my guidance, to why it shouldn't be converted to from pub to residential.
Which pub was that then?
The old Piccadilly Hive, yeah.
And this is more than a search engine would give you,
Well, let's try it.
except they use AI anyway, don't they?
Well, let's try it.
Yeah, it always comes up Gemini says at the top.
Yeah. So how do we normally search for this? We would probably type Baines planning. I didn't know. Right. So what do we have to do if we do a traditional search? It gives us a little bit of AI overview. So this is new. This is in the last 6 months that we're now getting AI overviews. But traditionally, we'd have to then start. Well, we get planning. Check if you need planning requirements. Drawing standard. Not particularly helpful to our specific question about supermarkets. So what it's able to do is, and that was without search. What I put through, I didn't tell it to go search and find information. This is just its base level of knowledge. We're getting different levels of quality. You can see that because I just asked a relatively simple question in its mind for Claude, it came back with a simpler answer. And then Google's Gemini gave me a pretty insightful summary Baines logic. So the reason I'm showing you 4 different models from the 4 biggest providers is the first kind of paradigm. One thing to take away from this is you do get what you pay for. Grok 4 is more expensive. The free versions of OpenAI are just that, they're free. And unfortunately, everything in AI, if you use it more regularly, will end up costing $20 a month. So everything's denominated in dollars, and it's always at $20. So the paid for versions of all of these, actually Grok 4 is costing $30. They upped it. But everything else for the good stuff cost money.
And who needs good stuff apart from people like you, the professionals,
Maybe I actually pay for the super package of $200 a month. So there are definitely tiers, but I use it 6 hours a day.
Yeah. But for the rest of us who are
After tonight, you might decide whether you want to do it or not. But you can definitely dabble for free, and I'll show you how to do that. So let's go through a few examples. So we've already done the explain something like I'm 5. But from a quiz perspective, let's have it write us a quiz. So I'm going to go back to ChatGPT and do a new chat. So you can see I'm already logged in, and there's my pro thing. So what I'm using is the model that you get for free. This is what comes out of the box. I have more advanced models, O3 and O3 Pro. This is what I have unlimited access to, which I use for work. But for basic questions, ChatGPT, the basics is just fine. What should we write a quiz about?
Larkhall.
good idea.
Right. How many different Larkhalls are there in the UK?
It's like Scotland, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is an example of what I would call almost a lazy prompt. I haven't given it any guidance or framework. And one of the things about using AI is I always say, treat it like an intern. Treat it like someone who doesn't, you have to give more explicit instructions to. So how many questions should this be? Should it be multiple choice? Should it focus on history or businesses in Larkhall? Or the pubs in Larkhall? Should it be focused on the football team, Larkhall Athletic? Do you want a well-rounded quiz? Who's the audience for it? Right now, if we do this, we're likely to not have our expectations met because all of us probably have a different idea of what a quiz is.
Quick though, isn't it?
It's quick, yeah. So we haven't given it. So it's made these decisions behind the scenes. It said, okay, well, I guess we'll do a round that has local landmarks and geography. All right. We haven't told it how difficult to make it, obviously. Are we tailoring this to people in Larkhall who know, obviously, the answer to the first one and the second one, the Rondo Theater across the street. And we're on St. Saviour's Road right now. All right, so not a particularly difficult quiz. So let's adapt it. So one thing about using AI and why ChatGPT in the end of 2022 became so powerful and captured so much imagination is you no longer had to give it the perfect question or instructions and get the output. Before that, AI had to be what we call a one shot. You had one chance to use it. You couldn't use the conversation above it. So it was a lot more like ducking autocorrect because it didn't have the ability to extend the context. Now we already have a starting point. So let's make the entire quiz more difficult by assuming that the quiz will be used by people who live in and around. Let's also give some more instructions. For the history section, I'm assuming the answer to this is Jane Austen, but I don't know. Did it give us a key? Oh yeah, give us an answer. Okay, yeah, all right. Give us the answers.
Bryan, is it important to use the word entire?
Well, I could also have told it to make the first section more difficult. So actually, I'll change that. Make the. All right. So now start to edit that.
But I mean, if you hadn't put entire in it, it might choose to only make a section of it.
Yes.
So you need to be specific.
Yeah. It might get it right. It might use its own kind of. Because behind the scenes, and the other thing that's the way these work is, it doesn't just start writing. It thinks about a problem. In other words, there's a bunch of stuff you don't see before it starts writing. And that's why it makes it powerful. And the more expensive models, like O3 Pro, it says best at reasoning, might think about a problem for 2, 5, 10, even 20 minutes. And by thinking, it's just generating a whole bunch of content you can't see, and then essentially giving itself another task to do. Okay, yeah, I didn't quite get that right. And it will keep going until it thinks it's gotten to the right answer. Again, the more, that's just computational power. That's more money essentially being spent on it thinking in order to get the answer. The free models, that's a smaller window. Right. Anything else you want to change about this? What is the book?
Add humour.
Perfect. All right. Absolutely. Here's a refined and more challenging version of the local landmarks.
It's just the one section, yeah. There's the humour.
Yep. Because I said, actually, it assumed that this instruction related to only the first section. Yeah. I wasn't specific enough. Yeah. So actually what I'll do, I'm going to go back and edit that. Add throughout entire quiz and draft the entire quiz response again. All right, so don't be lazy. I'm basically saying don't be lazy. There is a tendency for AI just to be lazy, to conserve a bit like humans, to say, oh, you didn't tell me exactly, in which case I'll just change the ones I needed to change, and you can figure out the differences. So I'm going to get rid of that last response. Absolutely, here's a full redraft with a sharper local ends, a cheekier tone. So again, we didn't describe what kind of humor we wanted. I guess I decided cheeky was the way to go. We could have asked to do puns. You call that local knowledge. All right. For residents, ringers, and people who once walked on the way to Alice Park. You're either new or lying. I mean, links Larkhall to Lansdowne. I mean, it's not wrong, is it? This is almost turned into housing. That's a bit nice. I'm actually really impressed. I mean, so,
It's almost like it's
What's the next bit? Deeply emotional.
So Bryan, is this, because you're using your account, is this tailoring it to you because it knows, it's familiar with you, the sorts of searches you might have made, your kind of sense of humour, or is it generic? If I asked it the same question, would I get the same answer?
You're very rarely to ever get the same answer to the same question twice. Because it's a mathematical formula, and to create some ability to, almost look like it's thinking, every response has a random number between 1 and 10 billion. So there's a little multiplication factor. And if you take that all the way through every single next word, essentially, it's predicting, and multiply by a slightly different random number, it gives you some variability in responses. So even if I, with my account, ask the same question again, I'm not going to get the same response. In professional settings, we actually change it so it never uses that random generator. But I won't get the same response twice. You're definitely getting a different response because you're right. I do have what's called memory. So my settings, I have memory turned on, my personalization. So I have I've given it custom instructions about who I am, what traits I should follow, and then it also knows some things I'm actually asked it to manage.
So you have to specifically ask it to do that rather than it recalling other questions that you asked it in the past and basing its answers on those, your sort of profile. Because it doesn't create a profile unless you ask it to.
Yeah, I have to explicitly tell it to create a profile about me. And for me, it's useful because it learns enough about me. And I asked it the question, tell me about myself. I won't do it live because it's pretty scary. And you learn quite, I learned a lot about myself. So it's quite a good quiz. I mean, so this is one way, you can be creative using. I'll try to find a way to get this out to everyone. I think it's very. Wow, and Trevor was supposed to be here tonight. That would have been great. So creativity in writing. There's a lot that could be said whether using AI as part of your creative process is cheating. But I'll give you a concrete example of what I use it for. So I've taught myself to play piano in the last 3 years, but I can't read music. But I play with a bunch of other middle-aged guys who play guitar. So they all use guitar chords. So I know what the chords are. So I can ask it, write me a song in the key of E minor with a sensible 4-chord progression about Larkhall Bath. not giving a lot of instructions other than something that might be able to, I might be able to play. I don't need the notes. So say also give me 2 verses, a bridge, and a chorus. So it interpreted EM as E minor correctly. It's using a 6-4-1-5 style progression, very common. E minor C G D, which probably a third of rock songs in the world have been written using that same chord progression. Give me a suggested tempo, style. Down in the valley where tourists stay, where they walk the lane where the gardens stray. So let's see. Let me see if it changed the chord. So it changed C, G, E minor, D. It gave me a suggestion to make the chorus more interesting, and then see if the bridge dropped an A minor in. So it kind of knew the structure of pop songs. And that bridge would be a lot more interesting without A minor starting with. Would I have thought of that? Maybe. I could also create my own chord progression and then say I need some lyrics. I could have lyrics that I already kind of have written down that I want refined. I can't think of a word that rhymes with orange. So there's a lot of things you can do as part of the creative process.
Can we hear it? I mean, is it?
There are things that can do. Yeah, they're more advanced to do the audio. But yeah, there are now music creation apps that are pretty great. There's a lot. So there's a lot in creativity and writing. Cooking and shopping, another one I use personally a lot. I'll show you how to interact with it. But just giving it a list of ingredients you have in your fridge and the time you have to cook it, and or the methods you want to cook with, and the people you have to serve, it's pretty good. And it's, the great thing about it, it's extremely tailored to what you have. It's not giving you, it's not going to use ingredients necessarily that you don't have. You say, I have leeks and peas and onions, butternut squash. What can I do with these?
Are we going to get a situation, using that example, where you'll be able to take a picture of the interior of your fridge, and it will actually calculate and come back with the answer?
It absolutely can. So I'm going to get to that. But yes, I do that. Or take a picture of the packaging, so I don't have to tell it how much of each ingredient I have. Let it figure it out. But yeah, that's available. So, anyone planned a trip using AI? Where'd you go?
Well, I asked it to create an itinerary for a certain amount of days in a location. So I was in Umbria,
Nice.
and after a few days, well, let's see what it comes up with. See if someone missed planning itinerary. So more as a double check.
Yeah.
That we haven't missed anything off it's done with that.
That's great, and that's becoming extremely common. Other ways is to use it actually while you're abroad. So we'll try it again, but this is one that I use my family. We are in Larkhall, Bath, keep it relevant, and are walking to Bath Abbey. Give us a walking tour with 3 stops and explain the relevance as if you were a tour guide giving a tour to a family that includes teenagers. I'll give it some more instructions, so make it interesting. Right? So my recent Italy trip, we were basically guided by AI, and also talking about using photos, standing in the Palazzo in Venice, saying, explain this building, now explain this building, and just giving, the historical context in 5 minutes or less, the full attention span of a a family like mine.
How do you get the photos in?
I'll show you, yeah. I'll show you. Tone set. So it's really giving me like it's a tour guide. Phones in pockets for 3 minutes. I promise there's one cool fact. All right, so we do Camden Crescent. It's about probably only a 20-minute walk, but give me some facts there. The circus, and then Sally Lunds. That's actually a pretty reasonable tour. Like, you know, if you want exactly 3 stops and get you at the Abbey, you know, doesn't take a lot longer to walk there, so it's a reasonable route. Now,
Another quick question there, Brian. Saw Sally Lunds coming up. Here's a potential for advertising. Google rates you. I mean, you've got AdWords, and so you get to the top of the list. So therefore, are they taking Sally Lunds there because Sally Lunds is actually paying them something per click? What's the answer to that one?
there's something that's very recent in the last few months called, so these are all called large language models, or LLMs. And there's something literally in the last 2 to 3 months called LLM optimization, or search. So same as search engine optimization, but optimizing for LLMs. It's really in its infancy. These models are built, so this isn't searching in the web. This knows that there's a place called Sally Lunds. It's in lots of other guidebooks or articles. It might be of interest. It knows its relative location to the Abbey. It knows 2-minute walk. It hasn't happened yet. We can come back in a year and I might be able to give you some case studies on where it's being kind of gamed, a bit like we know search engines are.
At the moment on the number of references to, so more references, more people visit it. Therefore, it's probably a good bet that there's a reasonable place to visit.
Yeah, I can't tell you, but again, it's a black box. I can't tell you how it arrived at that decision. Because I talked about the thinking behind the scenes. We can't see that. So I don't, yeah.
So what's the what was it, large language?
Model. Yeah.
So if you say, tell me the best restaurant in Bath, is it likely to come up with different ones every time then?
Best is all obviously subjective. It's going to be
Say best Italian or best Thai.
Yeah, and it might actually do some searches. So it might go on TripAdvisor. It might go on whatever the rating sites are there.
Top 5 Thai restaurants.
I'm asking now to draw a map. So I didn't give it a lot of instructions here. I'm not sure what kind of map I'll get. I didn't say, be creative and graphical.
You didn't even say what map. You just said draw a map. But it has to go back to that.
But this context is still there, right? So I'm carrying on the conversation and going back to the idea of why this is so important. The biggest advancement that ChatGPT gave was this ability to keep context.
And then you can start off new chats, can't you? If you want to come away from one, you can start another one. And then you've got all that reference going back.
Yeah, you can see the chats I've done. I've started a new one for each of the modern AI. It gave me about, I didn't tell it what kind of map, but it kind of gave me a directionally. That's, does that, it could have done better. It could have done better. It's not yet. Yeah. Could have certainly done better.
Could you say, draw me a map overlaid on an OS map or something like that?
So OS maps would be copyrighted and it won't be able to take that and do something with it. Yeah, there are ways to, so if we go to Gemini, I think that has the ability. So I'm now in Gemini. I'll make this bigger. Draw me a map of Bath, highlighting image review. I'll talk about that. Highlighting key landmarks. So I'm going to show you the thinking. All right, so here it's giving us some of that reasoning behind the scenes. Not the full bit of reasoning, but I've been thinking about the user's request for a visual map of Larkhall. Now focus using my image tool. So it's got the ability to use a tool, a bit like searching the web's another tool. Look at this offer advantage.
Ooh.
We've got the Abbey Church twice. Larkhall, Bath as a, this is not a reliable.
We're on the list.
But it's giving us some sort of approximation. Where, in terms of creativity, where these models are a lot better are kind of more creative images. So let's have it create an image of something more creative. Anyone seen it generate images? You probably will certainly seen them on any social media because it's a lot cheaper and easier to get just a provocative image for a Facebook post or a Twitter post.
What about one of Donald Trump? Cartoon of.
What style of cartoon? What's the
Hogarth?
what's that?
Wow, that's going to be intense.
Oh, I see. Okay, that would work. Yeah.
Trump.
Drinking gin. What were you going to say?
With Melania on it.
Syphilis or something.
Trump drinking gin and playing golf.
Riding a golf cart. You don't actually have to spell things correctly. This is not like
You've got ridding.
I do. Could you please confirm actual likeness? No.
Approximate's fine. That's fine.
All right. So it is going to.
Now this is your ChatGPT 4.0, which
This
is
is the free one.
This is the free one.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm generally using the same stuff that you would have, free or even like the $20 a month.
So you could take that's terrifying. I've just become quite scared of what you could do.
In terms of creating images.
Absolutely.
Do I need this is AI for the curious, then AI for work. Should I have AI for evil? We can talk about the sort of the ethics and the guard. So companies like OpenAI spend a lot of time and money putting in what they call guardrails. If I'd asked it to produce a nude image, the guardrails would have stopped me. If I asked it to produce an image of a child, it would have stopped me. If I asked it to replicate a copyrighted work that it knows is copyrighted, it would have probably generally stopped me. I could have Trump though be depicted as Lego bricks, even though it's not been done, and even though Lego is copyrighted, as a design patent. There's a lot of freedom and flexibility, and these commercial models have guardrails, but there's models that are open source. They've been trained and by someone in their bedroom that's very good and can do this, can do anything.
Talking about fast, what sort of internet connection do you need to get it coming up quite quickly?
Well, most of it's text. We're clearly just. I typically, if you have do you have a 4G?
I've got 5G on my phone, and I've got fibre broadband.
Oh yeah, it's fine. Yeah, you're absolutely fine.
That's amazing.
It's a pretty good Hogarth. Sign it, put it in a museum.
It's where it's real.
So that's a little fun and creativity, or in the case of Donald Trump, not that fun. Everyday advice. So anyone try to use it for like medical advice? So on a very personal level, I've got sore Achilles tendons right now. I asked it, rather than just do it again, I'll show you. So I asked it the question of, my Achilles tendons are very tight and have been for a few weeks. After playing football last night, they're noticeably more sore. So I need to go for a run, continue my training, and I was supposed to do hill repeats up Salisbury Hill. What should I do before, during, and after my run? And again, it gives me, kind of treats me like an expert, but it's suggesting a load modification. So that's the principles behind it, and then specifically what I had to do. Heat, mobility circuit with those 4 exercises, and definitely said don't do a hill run. And then during the run, keep an eye on it, so on. And the very end of it will say, disclaimer. It's not a doctor, but if it escalates, it's extremely useful for diagnosis. And increasingly, my personal opinion is because it has access to more information about the specific things going on, and it has access to the most recent information, and not a criticism of GPs and other doctors, but you have to stay extremely on top of it. So this is doing sources from 2004, orthopedic section update, tendon loading as first line, something from an orthopedics journal. So very up-to-date information to help me diagnose my sore Achilles tendons. Really, what it did say is you should rest for a couple weeks. So, common sense. And finally, I just want to show you, complex policies. So far we haven't done a lot with anything besides just asking it chat things, but let me, that's the best way to do this. I'm going to go over to this version of ChatGPT. Actually, I'll do it this way. Here's a travel insurance policy. So imagine, I'm going to give it the link to this. I have this, and give it the link. My sister got sick and I couldn't travel. What do I need to tell the insurance company to get a refund?
So you attach your policy?
I attached a policy. I could attach a document. So I can use this plus mark and I can say add photos or files. And I'll show you some more of how to do this. But this is a 43-page long policy, which is pretty standard. So let's use it to help us. And what it should say, you need to demonstrate your circumstances. So it's now rewriting that policy specific to my circumstance. It should probably ask me at some point, how do I prove it's my sister, evidence about your sister's illness, or your primary, so proof of your booking, proof of cancellation, policy. So
if you've read all the details in the policy, you'd know this anyway,
No,
you wouldn't need to ask
50
it to.
pages.
Yeah, but you would get through to the relevant paragraph.
Yep.
Yes.
But why?
Why? Because why do they bother sending it to you? I don't know. I just think some of this seems to me to be just elaborating on apps or whatever we've got already.
It's ultimately a time savings in this case. So this is a practical way, and also it's also some assurance that I didn't miss anything. I might be really tired and I might only have read the first half of the policy and miss something important in the second. If it's something more complex, like a contract or another legal document, and insurance policies can be pretty complex in their own right. You can put anything to it and have it read it in context with my case.
Okay.
So,
yeah. It's interesting, Bryan, because what they can do, of course, is through the claims records that they have received, they can then see which terms and conditions are actually costing them money, and they can say to this, can you rewrite these particular terms and conditions so that you can reduce our liabilities in this area? And it will do it.
If you want to go to the pub, I can talk a lot about this. This is almost my specialist subject within it.
The whole thing is really scary.
Yeah.
And also the social side. What are we all going to, I'm retired, but what is 4/5 of the working population going to do for the rest of their lives? Unless you're hands-on, solicitors go, estate agents go, anyone in the legal profession, accountancy, all these well-paid administrators,
all the plumbers and electricians.
everyone is going to go.
They'll be all right, won't
They'll be
they?
all right.
I think it is really scary. I won't be around to see it. Well, I probably will,
Right.
but
I
it's
hope you are, because it's coming very, very fast.
I know, every week.
I think the same thing. However, I think because it's here, we can either choose to go, holy, it's here, what are we going to do, and feel terrified,
Yeah.
or we can go, all right, it's here, how are we going to use it? And how are we going to use it? It does provide a space for creativity,
Yeah, I agree.
because what it does is take away those, if I need to fix stuff, or okay, it might not, you won't be getting quite so creative about, I've got some eggs and some, eggs and mushrooms and a carrot, and what am I going to do with them? But it then gives you time, that's cooked, I've done my feeding for myself,
Yeah.
I've not now got time to read more, I've got time to draw more, I can go for a run, I'm actually going to enjoy that space. So that it might be that we actually get more sociable if we turn it on its head, which is what I'm working to do, because I can't bear the idea that it's going to do all those things, which it is going to do. It's how do we then interpret that and then go, well, what's the best solution from this? What's the best scenario from this? Because there's no stopping it. It's a freight train and it's coming right towards us.
Yeah.
So how do we get out of its way and go, oh, it's a nice train, goodbye. Now what am I left with?
And I think that the insurance document's a good example where instead of reading 43 pages, digesting it and becoming an expert on your own insurance policy, which no one really wants to do, get to the point of what you need to do in 30 seconds, file your claim, move on. That's otherwise it's a 2 or 3 or 4 hour job that you could be doing something
Much more interesting.
more interesting or more productive.
I don't want to put everybody above, but I have been the last week trying to find out whether, because my car has had a stop driving immediately recall notice, and apparently the airbags which need to be replaced aren't available in lots of places, but I've found somewhere that will do it, and I've booked bath recovery to take the car there, but I don't know whether Citroën are going to reimburse me. Can you find that out?
That's an exact use case for AI. So put in your circumstances, and let me show you some ways to interact with it, because the story you just told, had we been recording it, would have been a perfect example of a way to even speed up that interaction further. And so I'm gonna create a new chat. And you notice the microphone icon, and there's actually 2, and I'll show you both. But a very common way that we're starting to interact with it is rather than type out exactly, when you start typing, you almost get self-conscious, you start to structure your thinking. Instead, all right, I'm going to just give you a stream of consciousness about my Citroën car that I need to understand some of the complexities about getting reimbursement from the Citroën dealer. It's a Grand Picasso C5. It's got the warning light on. The warning light's been going on and off for 6 months. I've taken it to the Citroën dealer 3 times. I'm just at my wit's end. How do I engage with the Citroën dealer to get them to do, kind of actually fix this thing, and I don't want to have to pay this time? All right, so how long would that take me to, if I just type it, I don't know, 3-4 minutes of thinking about it. I now have, and because this is not traditional transcription, it's putting things in perspective. So when I said Picasso and Grand Picasso C5, it knew to capitalize that, and it knew actually that's that goes together. Those words go together. So that's just a way to interact with it. But even probably more interesting, so I can ask it that question or do a typical thing.
I'm still on ChatGPT.
Yeah. Hi, are you there?
Sure, I sure am.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about Larkhall, Bath?
Absolutely. Larkhall is a lovely little neighbourhood on the northeast side of Bath. It's got a really charming village-like feel with lots of independent shops, cafes, and
tell
even
me
a
about
little
tell me about a few of those shops.
Sure. One of the popular spots is the Larkhall Butchers, which is known for high quality, locally sourced meats.
Do you know if they have
There's
any
also
vegan options at the butchers?
They do. They usually have a selection of plant-based options like vegan sausages and burgers, so there's something for everyone.
Oh, cool. And then my friend Bookshop James runs a bookshop, but I forget what the name of it is. Can you tell me?
Oh, that must be Persephone Books. It's a really charming little spot in Larkhall, known for its carefully curated.
I don't think it's that one. Is there another one?
In that case, it might be the Beaufort Bookshop. It's another lovely independent bookshop in Larkhall, and it's got a great community feel to it.
So there's a voice mode. So instead of just transcription, I'm interacting it using the voice mode option here. So this is another way to interact. I personally use this for recipes, like when I'm in the kitchen. It's a really useful one to have just, questions. It stays on, and I ask it,
I guess you could ask it to answer as a chef that you really like, and it would give you a specific, how they would cook. I guess.
Yeah, it's telling you. Gordon Ramsay.
Gordon Ramsay. Yeah.
Can you replicate kind of how Gordon Ramsay would talk to me? I've got some questions about a recipe.
I can definitely bring a bit of that Gordon Ramsay energy to the conversation. Just let me know what recipe questions you have, and I'll do my best to channel his style.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to cook a beef Wellington. Can you tell me?
All right, first things first, you need a good quality beef fillet. Season it generously, sear it quickly so it's nice and brown on the outside.
Can you now do it like Jamie Oliver?
Absolutely, mate. So with a beef Wellington, you want to get yourself a lovely beef fillet, season it nicely, give it a good sear so it's got that gorgeous color.
How about Delia Smith?
Of course. Now for a beef Wellington, you'll want to start with a beautifully trimmed beef fillet, season it well and sear it until it's a lovely golden brown.
So take on personas. Yeah, that's another fun way of interacting with it. Not going to be totally useful all the time, but this is becoming more common. Got a few more other ways to interact with it. So one other thing, you talk about fixing your car, fixing stuff. It's brilliant. Like question on specific models. When I was using it at the Larkhall Football Club to fix the BT router, like it had the purple light of doom. It correctly diagnosed that that's a line fault and called the engineer and gave me the number. So when I use it for like my own technical things, I also like search for products on it. Like I don't want to have to research the best price on a cable. Find me a cable that does this thing. Here's my problem. Where in the UK can I buy it at the best price? Really, and that goes out, searches the web. Does that? Could I have done it in 20, 30 minutes? Sure, but I'd rather just do something else and come back.
We just did it for flights for my brother-in-law, and we looked at going through all the Google search and going, this looks like the best Skyscanner or whatever, and it was say 400 quid for the flight, and then we asked ChatGPT, and it came up with one for 250 quid, and I don't know how it found it, but it found one. What's the cheapest flight on this day? Traveling to X, and it came back with this, and it was great.
Yeah, and there are actual AI search engines. So here's one called Perplexity, that is just a search engine, but just you ask it a question and it comes back with a structured response. So I'll make it bigger again.
So it is just a search engine, is it?
It is, but it's only AI. It's not going to give me a list of results. I mean, it does have references, but key shops. So it's giving me a bit like what you see now in Google, but this is becoming more common.
So how do those shops, what have they got to do to be listed there or to be what has to happen for them? Is that a Google? Have you got to be registered with Google's a business address?
It found some results, and it had 10 sources as you're going. It used these 10 sources and just gave me a response based on those 10.
Okay.
So, but yeah, search engines are certainly, you can actually use an AI search engine rather than even using ChatGPT.
Another issue, okay, again, this is personal privacy. If I were to, which I won't, put my name in there and say, give me all the financial information you hold on Mr. P. Smith, will it find it?
There are some guardrails for that. No, but there are other ways to get that information.
HMRC, yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you some other ways to find it.
Hacking, you mean?
More like you get what you pay for. So there are other sources.
So you could actually, through some paid subscription, actually get information.
But it's not surfaced as easily. But if I want to find the executive team from a company, which is kind of listed on their website, and just summarize who they are, I can certainly.
It's just frightening that the job. Right, if somebody applied for a job with you, would you know if they'd used AI from reading their application form?
I would hope they used AI. I wouldn't hire them if they hadn't tailored their CV and or the cover letter to. It's now table stakes, I think. I mean, obviously I work in AI, and you'd have to be very literate. But a couple of years ago, an HR director asked me, how do I screen out CVs that used AI? And I said, well, you should be doing it the other way around.
But if I'm going to write something for a client, doing some marketing or a press release or whatever it might be, am I going to use, if I use AI, I want to have an authentic voice to that. And it's not authentic, it's AI. So I'm not sure I understand how you can still be authentic.
Yeah, but don't forget that probably 95, and Bryan will confirm this, 95% of the population have no idea of what's going on. We now have a better idea of what's going on, so you can influence 95% of the population.
But that's not authentic, and I think this comes back to what
they think it's authentic.
But it's my values are being challenged. Do you know what I mean? Because I know I'm writing something, and I'm going, I've written it like this.
Yeah, but this is the problem with the whole
system.
Unfortunately, another question I have here. Which is the most secure way? Well, how can you what's the best security system to keep all this lot out? Now, I use an integrated Apple system, which I've always found very, very good. And I've never been hacked, I've never had any issues. But how can you, Microsoft do a product that's useful. Where's the best way that you can protect yourself from people trying to get in there, get your information?
So I think for generative AI that we're talking about here is where you're going to see it kind of be malicious in your life are things like spam and trying to get information out of you. So are you talking to a real person on the end of a WhatsApp message, for example? And if you were a scammer sending WhatsApp messages at scale, hoping that people respond, you're going to use a chatbot to do that interaction because you're trying to get them on the hook before finally you're unlikely to have to worry about kind of this being part of kind of other ways of hacking your information. That's a separate area of cybersecurity. It's going to start to overlap, but less so, I think. I think we have probably 10 more minutes. I just want to show you a couple more things that are, I think, really kind of interesting. So I've just put in an Excel spreadsheet. And so oftentimes we interact with data and just, if you're ever looking at, some sort of thing, like I've got some data I need to do something with. This is getting more towards work, but just to show you that I'm using, again, ChatGPT to analyze a file. And the file could be, we talked about uploading an insurance policy, so it can look at PDF files, Word documents. In this case, it's looking at an Excel file, and now it's giving me an overview of what's in there. And I can then ask it to do some things with it. So it's telling me some things. It doesn't matter what this file is. Crawl. I'll just say draw me a graph, which is really lazy until what to do. So this is all invoices. Can do things with it. Just draw me a graph. So it starts to be able to become a data analyst for you. This is getting more towards like AI for work, but all right, student 1. Being lazy, again, in the context, I didn't have to rewrite that. It asked me a question. I just gave the response, what number. So now it's doing some analysis. It's actually going to write some code behind the scenes. So you can start to become a bit of a coder without having to actually write code yourself. So with that, so
What happened in April?
bad month.
You fed in data though.
I fed in data. I fed in an Excel spreadsheet. Yeah. Right. That's just another way to interact with it by uploading files and having it do stuff with it. You'll find, depending on the model you use, it has different abilities, and they constantly get better. Like what I tell you today will probably be out of date in 3 months in terms of what it can do with a certain type of file. Probably the worst thing it does right now is create PowerPoints. Presentations is probably the last kind of major thing that people do in life. Create a presentation like this using AI. Where by the end of the year, it should be really good. But that's
Do
just
you use AI to make it?
Of course. Yes and no. The content was largely written by AI, but my lovely product manager, Natalie Quirk, did a lot of this.
So when you say take a photograph, and it says which books are classics, could I take a photograph of more or less everything I own and say what's valuable?
I don't know. Short answer. But you're curious enough to think about that and try it.
I mean, Google Lens.
Yeah.
You take a photograph and it'll.
Which is another form of AI. Yeah. That's yeah. So you can absolutely do things like that. You can have it. What books do you see here, and which potentially might be valuable? Catalog my books. Sort these chronologically or by genre or.
Could you ask what is the best way to arrange these books or this record collection or something?
The answer is by color. Anyway, that's personal opinion. But yeah, you absolutely could, with this collection of things, do something with it. And I just want to kind of, so the number one thing I just wanted to kind of bring across is just try it. There's no, you saw me get some things wrong here, and I use it almost literally 5-6 hours a day. Just start playing with it, ask it questions, see what it gets right, figure out how, what it's good at. I don't know if it can catalog or give you values of books, but why not try? You can take a photo and upload it, or use the phone version of it to take a photo of your fridge. I know that for a fact, but I don't know if it can do your cupboard. What can it detect all the ingredients you have in different shapes of pasta? I don't know. It might. You might find something useful there. Can it choose paint color samples that would go with something? Maybe. It's a great tool. It's never perfect. It's a way to just start trying.
You likened the prompting to being like talking to an intern, thinking of how to give it the most amount of detail and prompt.
What would you liken the experience of talking to AI?
It increases in its ability every 3 months. So when ChatGPT came out, it was kind of like a smart high school student. It then quickly became like a university student to a university grad to now a post grad. And I would say using the best models and good prompts, it's a world-class expert in a field. And the more you have an expertise in an area, the more you can actually brainstorm with it back and forth. So when I work with it on areas like AI, I can sense where it's right and wrong, and it's generally more right than wrong. And I'm learning stuff. I find angles I would never have thought of. That's one. The second is, we humans get tired. And I had a client a few years ago who just says, it's my late afternoon brain. It's like I get a bit tired after lunch. I just can't think, So I use it just to kind of do that heavy processing. And so I can just review the work rather than have to do the work. And the third is there's a lot of times you just can't be bothered to do the thing. I had to write a complaint email about a product that broke on the first time I used it. And I didn't want to have to write it. So I dictate for 30 seconds. I was like, please write, AI, please write a friendly complaint message about this product. Here's the situation, it went wrong. Be nice about it, but explain how I was using it. And it wrote that email and I sent it off.
Well, can I ask, of the free ones, which one would suit us better?
If you have access, if you already have a Google account, Gemini is perfectly good. And there's a lot of other ways you can use it. It's got pretty much everything you need. I would make that my first point of call.
Is there a more expensive, is there one that you can pay for Google Lens? Is there a better Google Lens?
Lens, I don't know about, but there's features in. You should actually try it out with Gemini, because Gemini is going to have that lens capability, but a lot more information behind the scenes, a lot more ability to you could craft something that says, here's what I want to know about it, each piece, and picture, give you that structured response.
And what's the paid for platform with Lens? What's that called?
It wouldn't be with Lens. It's just with Gemini. Yeah.
Will it replace a lot of apps?
It already is, yeah.
Because it can do so much more.
A friend of mine uses it for every day he wakes up, and he has an ongoing chat about just how his body's feeling and what exercises he should do. And it keeps track of, so he's like, I did my hill repeats yesterday, and, what should I be doing today? And, it has behind its scenes, it always check the weather before you give me a response. Don't tell me to go run outside if it's, yeah. But the great thing about it's the ongoing nature. So it replaces an app of workout routines and just continuous.
Unlike other apps, websites, apps, is it harvesting all your information?
The free versions are. So behind the scenes, if you don't pay, it will have this setting, turn data controls. So I have improved the model for everyone. So that's turned off for me because I pay. If you don't pay, you are, just like Google, if you get something for free, you are the product.
So you're asking those questions that you might find advertising coming to you?
Less so. It's more like just they're using that as great training set for the next version of the model. So in a really extremely, probably 1 in a billion situation, something you type could then directly come out of it if it's really obscure and unique. But more than anything, you're getting something for free, and what they're getting is a human curating the answers and saying, no, that's not what I meant this. And that's where it's helping train the models. Yeah, it's about being sensible. And
So, as a force for good, one example I can think of is people with dyslexia. It's a game changer for people with dyslexia. Can you think or tell us? Obviously, ChatGPT could, but have you experienced anything so profound?
Yeah, I mean, what I showed you with the dictation, I think, is extremely powerful. To not have to structure your thoughts and just get it out. And the more complex the situation, the more your brain just starts worrying. Just get it out in any format. Don't be embarrassed. And so if you have, if you're self-conscious, if you can't type quickly, if you or dyslexic, and like my friend does it for his. He also, in fairness, I think he does it for his. It's like, here's how I'm feeling. I didn't get a lot of sleep. I'm feeling a bit down. Being stressed out at work. What can I,
But if the pre-ones are sharing your data, and you'd told it, you had an inoperable brain tumor or whatever, but you didn't want that to be known. Could that then be accessed by somebody else?
I don't know. It's a bit like typing it into Google. Could that be used? Or, if you typed a text message saying that, if it's written down somewhere, just assume it could probably find its way out.
But on yours, where you're not sharing that data, that wouldn't come out.
I wouldn't be. The bigger concern is I open ChatGPT and you can see pretty much everything I've done. Like that's probably a bigger concern. It's here. I've logged it. Versus something's more nefarious behind the scenes, kind of extracting that nugget and doing something with it. You're more likely just to have, leave a tab open on your computer and have someone see it, or do a presentation like this and someone sees why. Yeah. Because I think we have to draw it to a close, unfortunately. But I hope this has gotten you curious.
Fascinating.
It's been an absolute pleasure to have you come out.